Welcome back to Apply Now, your go-to podcast for creator economy career advice and hiring insights. Today's guest is Emma Downer, a content creator and entrepreneur behind DIY with Emma. Emma, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so glad you get to be here. I thought we'd start off by giving our guests a little bit of background. How did you get started as a creator? What was your content journey like?
Well, I was actually working as a consultant for a consultancy firm here in the UK. And in about March 2020, I just started putting out content online. People were in lockdown at that time and they were a bit bored, didn't have any opportunities to bring tradespeople into their home anymore. So they were kind of stuck with DIY and home maintenance problems. And so I spent the last year before that upskilling and learning how to do up my house. So I just started creating videos showing people how to do some of the things that I already knew how to do. And it really just kind of went from there. It was something that people really wanted and were really desperate for at that time. And I quit my job almost exactly a year later in April 2021.
And what was that like? I mean, I'm sure it's a scary thing, kind of taking the leap and going out doing it on your own. So what was the decision behind saying, I'm going to go into content creation full time?
Well, to answer your first question, it was terrifying. It was terrifying because I'm someone that has no financial safety net. So I don't have anyone that I can turn to say, hey, I've kind of messed up this month. Could you lend me some money? So I left this having just signed up to a brand new 5-year mortgage and I had no clients. So part of the reason that I made that decision at that time is that I wasn't really enjoying the work that I was doing. And it was a real case of the last straw on the camel's back. So I left that and sort of just said, I've got 6 months worth of savings. I will find a way to make this work. It is going to work. Yeah, no, I'm not going back to this job. I will find a way. And I decided that this would be the way that I would make that move. And at that time, I think I'd grown to about 50,000 followers on social media. So I had some sort of foundations to work and just hoped that brands would work with me.
Yeah. How did you land your first brand deal? How did you go about getting sponsorships?
Well, luckily, it was somebody who reached out to me and they reached out to me on my website and I didn't realize I put the wrong email address in. So it gone to the spam filter. I hadn't seen it for a few weeks. I picked it up and I thought, okay, great. Well, this is what I'll do. And of course, did this piece of work for them, charged next to nothing, but really just wanted to build my portfolio and be able to show examples of successful campaigns to bigger companies and perhaps companies that had more budget. And that's exactly what I did. So I built up that portfolio with lots of brands where I did work that, paid me a lot less. And it just attracted slightly larger brands every time. And that was I think that's kind of the key to getting those big brands.
Sure. And what does your business look like today? Is it primarily brand sponsorships? Are you monetizing, in other ways?
Well, it's changed a lot in the last few years. My business is now multi-award winning, which is unbelievable. Never expected to sort of get to that.
Congratulations.
That point. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It is still predominantly sponsorships. So like in the last couple of years, I've worked with the likes of Marvel, at Disney, TikTok, Pinterest, BBC Studios, just some incredible brands. And I'm moving into some other areas to fund the business because obviously I love doing sponsorships. I love working with brands, especially as it helps my followers find really good products. But it's obviously just one way of monetizing and I'm the bottleneck. Every time I'm the person who has to create the content. I'm the face of my brand. So I've been moving into different revenue streams over the last year or so, including some physical products, some little DIY kits that I've put on my website, just some stuff to get people started and kind of addicted to the joy of doing DIYs. And I've also, next week, this is fantastic timing, just about to launch my first DIY course. So it's specifically for new homeowners, focused around home maintenance and DIY. And later this year, which is the really exciting one, is I'm launching a clothing company for women's workwear, as there's not a huge amount of workwear options. And so I'm kind of trying to bring something to the market that people would love to pop to the shops in, but is also protective. So it's not just a fashion item, it's very practical. you're going to be able to work in it, but also it looks nice and you feel good when you're wearing it.
That's awesome. What I love about this is, creator businesses are so often driven by your experience, right? Like you are the target customer. And so not only have you identified, okay, well, there's a need for tools to help do this type of work because you've been in that position, right? Figuring it out and teaching yourself. But then you can create content to educate people how to do this themselves. And then you've got, digital products that you can sell through these education courses. And then ultimately, building a fashion brand that is also practical, allows you to provide something else of value to your audience, but it's aligned with the content that you create. So essentially your audience, your distribution online becomes the marketing engine for these other businesses that you're building.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that feels really special to me about the clothing brand in particular is that is something I intend to build with my audience. So I'm in the process at the moment of building a focus group of people so they can tell me, okay, well, what do you need in this? Because I think I know what they might need, but I don't know for sure. So I want to really build the business with them, so that it's something that they're a part of. And that way I think we'll have a better chance at, first of all, bringing something to market that people will actually like and want to wear. Yeah. And also it's kind of special, I think, to be involved in something from their side.
Yeah, from the ground up. That's awesome. That way they have a sense of ownership in building out this brand and the products with you. So very cool.
Yeah.
What are the challenges as a creative entrepreneur? What are some of the things that you've learned the hard way along the journey?
Oh, there's so many things. There's so many things. Well, it's an incredibly hard job. And I think that people who don't do the creative type of jobs, particularly being a creator on social media, don't necessarily have like the awareness of just everything that's involved to be successful in this area. It looks really easy, You sometimes have people saying, oh, well, I created this one video and I charged 10 grand for it. And it's so misleading because there's so much that goes into creating a piece of content for a brand, not just the years and years worth of evidence you build to be able to run successful campaigns in your experience, but the negotiations, finding the right idea, all of the failures that you have to do to get to that point of having like a really good and effective campaign.
Yeah.
So I would say the job itself is almost more than a full-time job, especially when you're creating on multiple channels.
Sure.
And multiple channels kind of desire something a little bit different for each channel. So you're having to really tailor it for the channel. And so I think my biggest challenge today has been just having to be a solo creator doing this all by myself. And I've recently taken on two new members of staff. So there's four people that work for me in different capacities, either as subcontractors or on my payroll.
And what roles have you hired for? What are the team members helping you with?
So I have a social media manager, so someone who just helps me with the uploading of content, doing the copy for those videos. That's enormously helpful for me personally because I'm dyslexic, so it's actually exceptionally challenging to write copy and write compelling copy on a video. And, my followers always notice this because they pick up on the spelling mistakes. And I'm like, sorry, I can't see them. I can't see the spelling mistake. And so I have a social media manager and I have an intern working with me as a social media assistant. So she also does helps with some editing and creating of content. And recently she's just been uploading a lot of content to my website as I've got coming out a DIY hub. So an area on my website that people can go to see what I've published about any particular area. So if you want to know about tiling, click on the little button that says tiling, and then there's every video I've made about tiling.
Yeah.
It's just an easy way to distribute what I've done. I get lots of messages from people saying, have you done anything on painting? I'm like, most certainly have. It's hard to find, when it's years old.
Sure.
The other two people I have working for me is an operations manager. So someone just helping me sort out the processes of my business. Typical, for a startup. I've created it in a bit of a haphazard way because I'm really bootstrapping. And so to a point where I'm like, can you help me work out how to do this better?
Sure.
I keep losing my original content because I save it on my phone and then I'm like, where was that video? And I've got like 2,000 assets. And
Yeah.
how do I manage these?
Wow.
And the final person is a web developer. So just somebody that I have to come and help do the technical web side of things.
Very good. And what are the qualities or characteristics you look for when hiring for your team?
That's such a good question. I think for me, I'm always really interested in what they want to get out of working for my company. And because I want this to be an asset to their career. You know, I'm not under the illusion that they might want to work with me forever, but I want it to be a really good stepping stone for them to go forward with. Perhaps they're looking to get into entrepreneurship themselves, which is true for some of my team, or, you know, perhaps they're just looking to get some real life experience in an office environment, knowing what it's like to have deadlines, or, you know, just to be surrounded by a team. So I think it depends a little bit on what they're looking for. So I want to make sure that actually I can add something to their career. And I think I look for people who think a little bit differently than I do, because the way that I work is just one particular way, and I'm convinced that it's the correct way, and it's the way that I've always done it. And then I've brought on these new team members, and I know that the ideas they're going to come up with are very different, because I gave them like a little assignment in the interviews that I did recently. And I was particularly looking for somebody who would come up with ideas or ways of doing things that wouldn't be what I would have thought. So I love being challenged like that.
Yeah.
To come up with
what
ideas.
was the assignment? How do you help test for that up front?
So the task that I had them do was to basically work out how better to manage my assets, so my 2,000 video assets. Just asking, how do I record what I've posted and when, and how do I number the items? And the solution itself wasn't too much important to me, but I was just intrigued to hear about their thought processes and how they solved problems and what kind of things they considered. And they all come up with really different ideas. So that was really fun.
Very good. And sounds like help to solve a practical problem for the business, right? So that's awesome. How does running your own business differ from working in a more corporate environment, right? You've had this pretty significant shift in your career in the last 4 years, and now you're also building a team, managing, hiring people. What are the chief differences between working in a creative focused startup versus being in a traditional office environment?
I would say just the freedom to move at the speed that I need to. And by that, I mean, a lot of the places that I've worked up until now, when I was working in a more corporate environment, were very large organizations. They moved very slowly. They didn't have much capacity for new ideas or creative thinking. And because of that, I was always just so deeply frustrated. I could never move forward as fast as I wanted to. I'd always be coming up with ideas, and they'd say, oh, it's such a great idea, but we can't really implement it right now. And so just the ability to really exploit my skill set and to move something forward fast has felt really good. That's been a huge difference for me.
I empathize with that as an entrepreneur, right? I started working in startups early in my career, fell into it, but got hooked on the adrenaline rush, the speed at which startups operate. And I think the thing that was so attractive for me is ultimately you control your destiny, right? So you determine how quickly you move along the learning curve, how much your career progression is dictated, right? A lot of that is more self-driven. So you own the timeline, which is not something you get necessarily in a traditional corporate environment. That's not the right fit for everybody, right? There's also challenges that come with being in a startup and the ambiguity about having to figure a lot of things out yourself. But for the right person, it's interesting to hear that, from a creative standpoint, or even from, a startup business standpoint, we crave the same things, which is that speed and that control over your career future.
Yeah, exactly. And just as you were saying, I think some of those cons or some of those, potential drawbacks are, at the same time of having complete control over everything, you also have the complete control over everything. And even just like going on holiday and handing over the reins very briefly to my social media managers, to say, here's what you need to do. If this happens, or if this happens, or actually if something bad happens like this, just contact me. You never quite can switch off in the same way that I could when I used to work for an organization.
Sure.
Even when I worked for corporate, if they rang me, I just wouldn't answer. Like, whatever,
there's someone else who can handle that. I'll see you when I get back. Yep, exactly.
Like, there's not enough money for me to accept this call. Yeah.
So how do you think about the long-term career planning for you as an individual, but also as a business owner, and thinking about the future of your content creation and the DIY with Emma company brand, right? So is this something that you think you'll do forever? Is this something that you think about will have an evolution or different stages? What does career planning look like as you've entered this new chapter?
Well, in terms of my own career planning, what I'm keen to do is get to a point where I've created a business that allows me to have resources that can allow me to do bigger and greater things. So, I have a real love for developing things that benefit the wider community. So I'd love to set up scholarships and things like that for entrepreneurs who live in and around the area that I grew up. So I came from a low socioeconomic background, and the likelihood that I would be here now as an entrepreneur running my own business was quite unlikely. And that's a lot to do with my background and, what I was surrounded by. And I'd love to be able to set up programs for people who are interested in entrepreneurship to be able to just have some of those opportunities, because those opportunities really do make the difference for a lot of people. And so really I'm building this business not just to benefit the people who will be, consuming the DIY content or wearing the clothing, but as a way to build up resources to be able to pursue other projects that I think will be beneficial at the same time. So I am building this business with the outlook that I want to build something that I could potentially sell in the future, that I could potentially exit from. It's not my core focus, but it's something that I'd like to keep as an opportunity, as a possibility. So that's sort of what my career looks like. On the other side, I didn't quite realize, I think, when I started this, just how much joy I personally would get out of being able to create jobs for people. I've been quite late to opening up positions and opportunities in my business because it was just scary, feeling like you're 100% responsible for the wage of someone else and their livelihood and everything in their life was always quite intimidating for me. But I really feel like I've overcome that in the last year or so. And I'm really excited about bringing on new members of my team over the next year. In particular, I really want to have just like a full-time member of the team to do probably PA work, administrative work. My social media manager's part-time, so it'd be great to have that as a full-time role. And additionally, I'd love to have a production team. So I do all of my videos myself. I'm the editor, the script writer, the filmer. I'm the on-screen talent. I do absolutely everything. And then, I've managed to have some great opportunities to work with studios in the last couple of years, professional studios. And I've realized how nice it is to have a team and to have people helping you. So I've had a taste of it and I want more.
Very good. Your story is really inspiring, especially for those who also want to be an entrepreneur or a creator. And oftentimes, there's a spectrum of creators. Some are more in it for the art form and some are in it for the business. But many people are this blend of entrepreneur and creative like yourself. What advice would you give to someone, particularly those maybe who come from a similar socioeconomic background and are looking to say, well, how do I find the resources, or what do I need to do to get started in entrepreneurship? What would you recommend for them?
Well, I love that question because, for me, this took a long time to get here. I'm 36 now. I started this maybe 3 years ago, but I found out about the word entrepreneur when I was 13. And I knew at the age of 13 that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't have those resources and I was too scared to do it. I didn't know anybody in business. It's this so out of the wheelhouse of just anything and anyone that I know. And it took me 20 years to make that leap. So I guess I would say to anybody, don't worry if it's taking you some time to get to that point that you feel that you can do it. I would say do your best to sort of build up something on the side if you're able to test things out. When you are going to be doing something, it just makes a lot of sense to be able to test out quickly if you actually enjoy doing something. So making content on the weekends might be a good idea, or trying out new business ideas. Because if it turns out you don't like it, it's better to find out now than it is to quit your job and then find out.
True.
So if you can find something you like first and build up some sort of emergency fund or buffer that will enable you to sort of take a bit more of a risk. And if it doesn't work out, people can go back to employment. Like there's probably going to be the case for most people that they'll be able to pick up some sort of employment again after taking like a gap to try something in entrepreneurship. So it doesn't have to be the end of the world if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, right? Number one, get started as soon as you can, because entrepreneurship is often 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? There's a lot of failures and lessons along the way. And you don't have to get it just right. The important thing is kind of get started and learn as you go. I do like the suggestion to do things on nights and weekends, because that's a great way to test and learn and, bootstrap something while you're still in your other employment until you can kind of get to the point like you were a year in where you said, all right, I'm confident that I'm going to figure this out. And you took the leap to do it all on your own. And then, yes, there's always, that safety net of you can always go back and find a job. So you'll be enhanced. Your experience will be improved by trying to do something on your own. So I think those are some really good, tangible takeaways for people.
Yeah.
Emma, where can people find out more about you and your content?
So I'm DIY with Emma. That's the handle that I use across all of my socials. It's also the name of my website. That's where they can find the DIY hub that I'm launching in a few weeks. And it will be the place that they can also see the DIY course that I'm launching in a couple of weeks as well. As for my clothing company, TBC, I don't know what I'm going to call it yet, but they will certainly be able to find out about that from my mailing list, which is on my website.
Amazing. Well, Emma, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your experience. It's amazing to hear your story in just these few short years of becoming a content creator, following your heart's passion to be an entrepreneur, starting to grow your team and what you look for in candidates, both on kind of the business side of things and as well as starting to think about how do I build out a production team and help the creative processes that you work on. So it's an inspiration for other aspiring creators and entrepreneurs, and we really appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you. I hope so. I really appreciate this.